Hare Krishna, and welcome all of you for today's special reading session. Let's begin the session with a few prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome all of you for this today's book reading session. Today we are going to continue to read from Srila Prabhupada's book, that is Elevation to Kṛṣṇa Consciousness. And today's theme is the way out. So let's see what's the way out. So let's begin to read. So what we'll do is we will read and we will also have a discussion based on what we read. And towards the end, we can also have a Q&A session. The whole session will last for about 40 minutes. Okay, now let's begin the reading. Can we display the text, Santosh? Yes, this session we dedicate to our beloved spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. The way out. The cause of sufferings. So I will read this myself. The individual souls who are put into the miseries of the material world are suffering the resultant reactions of their unsanctioned activities. This is the verdict of Bhagavad Gita. Tanaham dvishata kruran samsareshu naradhaman kshipam yajasram ashubhan asurishveva yonishu. The meaning is envious, mischievous, the lowest of mankind, these do I ever put them back into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. Okay, in the previous reading session, we were discussing about our existence in the material world and how we are going through a lot of sufferings. Even though we do not plan for sufferings, sufferings do come. And we have discussed there are three kinds of sufferings which everybody in this world go through. That is, sufferings caused by our own body and mind is the first one, adhyatmic klesha. Then second one is sufferings caused by other living entities, other people around us or other animals around us. That is called adibhautik klesha. And the third one is sufferings caused by higher forces of nature. Say, for instance, earthquakes, tsunamis, scorching sun, freezing cold. These are all the examples of adhidaivik klesha, miseries caused by higher forces of nature. Now, the Bhagavad Gita is not only telling us the different kinds of sufferings that we are going through, the Bhagavad Gita also tells us what is the cause of this suffering, why these sufferings have been inflicted upon us. So the key word here is the sufferings are due to the resultant reactions of our unsanctioned activities. The key word here is reactions. So whatever we go through in our life, be it on an individual scale or on a larger scale, world level, global level, all these are happening as a result of our actions that we have performed. So tanaham dvishata kruran samsareshu naradhaman kshipam yajasram ashubhan asurishveva yonishu. So when we act out of enviousness, when we act out of mischievousness, mischief, when our consciousness is on a lower platform, whatever activities we do, either individually or collectively, that is going to attract certain reactions. And those reactions actually cause our sufferings. See, everybody, all of us, we work, we do so many activities. The why do we do activities? To become happy, isn't it? To achieve happiness. In fact, that is the goal of all our activities. But then, much to our surprise or much against our expectations, we also go through sufferings, and we must know for certain from the Bhagavad Gita that the sufferings that we are going through is not by chance, but these are the results of our own activities that we have done. Now, that brings us to the point that we have to be very careful while doing any activity. Human beings have been given higher intelligence because we need to be conscious. We need to know the responsibility that we have got while doing our activities. Every action has got a reaction. We need to be aware of this. So let's move forward. Let's see the next part. Who would like to read the next part for all of us? Miseries can be avoided. That's a good news. So who would like to read? Okay, I'll read it myself. The parts and parcels are meant to serve the whole, and when they misuse their independence, they are subject to the miseries of the laws of matter, just as criminals are subject to police action. The state considers its citizens to be its parts and parcels, and when a citizen misuses his relative independence, the state puts him under police authority. The life of a citizen outside the prison and the life of a citizen within the prison are not the same. Similarly, the sufferings of the living entities within the prison of material nature cannot be equated with the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, which exist in the absolute freedom of Satchidananda. Okay, so now, if you could remember, uh, 2 sessions ago, we had discussed, 2 weeks ago, we had discussed about the nature of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Pastimes means the Leelas. The Leelas of the Supreme Lord are transcendental, which means they do not belong to the material dimension. They are not subjected to the laws of material nature. So when the Supreme Lord comes to this material world and he performs his activities, he is still transcendental. His activities are completely spiritual. They are not subjected to the laws of material nature. There are no reactions to the actions performed by the Supreme Lord. Now, that is different from our case. In our case, whatever activities we perform, there are reactions, resultant reactions. Now, this is a very fundamental difference between us and the Lord. Even though we are parts and parcels of the Lord, but still we are subjected to the laws of material world, material laws. Now, why are we subjected to the material laws? Now, that is pointed out here. When we misuse our independence to act against the design of ourselves and the design of the world, then we immediately become subjected to the laws of material world. Otherwise, we also can remain on a spiritual platform. We also can remain on a transcendental platform, completely unaffected by the material laws, just like the Lord. But because we have misused our minute independence, and instead of serving the Lord, which we are actually meant for, when we try to enjoy independently, that is when we come under the influence of material laws. Now, Srila Prabhupada is giving an example here to make us understand. Just like the state or the government maintains prison house. Now, for what purpose does the government maintain prison house? Uh, to keep the prisoners, to keep the criminals who violate the state laws separate from the law-abiding citizens. The law-abiding citizens, they're good citizens. They follow the laws. In other words, they don't act against the established order of the government. Whereas those people, some citizens who misuse their independence and perform activities against the established social or the established government laws, they are called criminals. And these criminals are immediately put under the police authority. So the police authority, they have a different kind of dealings with the law-breaking criminals. So there is a difference between the law-breaking citizens, how they are treated by the government, and the law-abiding citizens, how they are treated by the government. Even though both are citizens of the government has different approach towards both of them. Now, does it mean that the government is partial? No, the government is not partial. The government is applying the same laws to everybody, but when somebody chooses to act against the laws of the government, then he is put under police custody. Now, similarly, uh, all living entities, all souls, we are all part and parcel of God, but the moment we rebel against the authority of the Lord, then we are put under the material laws. We are put under material nature. And just like in the prison house, there are various sufferings which the prisoners go through. In the same way, all of us in this material world, we are going through certain sufferings. But the good news is that these sufferings and miseries can be avoided. Now, how to avoid it? We simply have to uh, become re-established in our original position as law-abiding citizens. Now, it is not just out of fear that we have to start following God, but God is actually such a lovable person. Only because we have forgotten our relationship with God, now we are not able to experience that loving relationship. But once we revive our original relationship with God, we fall in love with God because God is such a lovable personality. Then out of love, we will start abiding by His instructions. Now, love is always by free will. Love can never be imposed upon somebody by force, isn't it? Now, that is why in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna again and again appeals to us that you become my devotee. So, Lord Krishna is telling in the Bhagavad Gita, become my devotee, bhava mad bhaktaha. Now, when you become my devotee and engage in my devotional service, you will experience a greater level of pleasure, which you cannot get by doing some material activities. So, to avoid miseries, we have to reawaken our dormant love for God, for Krishna. That is the only way out. So, God is a lovable person. We have an eternal loving relationship with Him. It's not something new that we are trying to do when we say we have to love God. Originally, we are lovers of God. But right now, because of the misuse of our free will, we have been subjected to material conditions and we have forgotten our original loving tendency towards God. Now we have to revive that original loving tendency towards God. And that's when you can avoid all miserable conditions. Even while being situated in this material world, we can attain a stage where we become free from all miseries. So that is the important point here. Let's move forward. Miseries can be avoided. No government wants its citizens to act in such a way that they must go to prison and suffer tribulations. The prison house is undoubtedly constructed by the state government, but this does not mean that the government is anxious for its citizens to be put into it. Indirectly, the disobedient citizens force the government to construct the prison house. It is not done for the pleasure of the government, which has to spend a great deal of money in constructing and maintaining it. Yeah, this analogy has been extended here by Srila Prabhupāda. So the material world is compared to a prison house. Now, the government spends a lot of money in constructing and maintaining the prison house. Now, for what purpose? The government is doing it not for the purpose that, oh, let everybody come and stay in the prison house. No, that is not the purpose. The government is also concerned about the disobedient citizens. After all, they're all citizens only. Where will they go? And at the same time, these citizens who have disobeyed the state laws have to be reformed. They have to come to a state where they realize that it was wrong on their part to break the laws and act in such a criminal manner. Therefore, the government constructs the prison houses, takes care of the needs of the prisoners, fooding, sheltering, everything is taken care. At the same time, the government also, the prison laws uh, dictate some activities, some punishments to these law-breaking citizens. Now, the purpose of these punishments or miseries given to the prisoners is to reform them, is to make them realize that they shouldn't have broken the state laws. That is the purpose. Now, in life, if you learn this one simple lesson, that whatever miseries come to me, there is a purpose behind it. God wants to teach me something out of these difficulties, tribulations. Then the purpose of those miseries is fulfilled. If you learn the lesson and move forward, it's over. So Lord Krishna says the same thing in the Bhagavad Gita. If you take up the spiritual path and become conscious of me, Lord Krishna says, then you can escape these miseries altogether. So that is the whole point. So Lord Krishna is personally maintaining this material world, even though all of us have rebelled against the authority of the Lord, or all of us have actually forgotten our eternal relationship with God, because the Lord is merciful towards us. He is a loving father. Just like a father, even though sometimes the son talks against the father, the father is still merciful to the son. The father still takes care of the son. It is just like that. So this material world, an elaborate arrangement in this material world, is all a reflection of the love that Lord has towards us. Now, in return, what does the Lord expect from us? Just like the government expects that the prisoners give up their criminal mentality and become law-abiding citizens again, then they are set free. In the same way, the Lord expects us that we learn our spiritual lessons, we learn, and for that purpose, the Lord personally comes and he talks the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna for all of our sake. So this is how the Lord is so merciful. When we understand the Bhagavad Gita and lead our life according to the principles of Bhagavad Gita, then we are actually set free. We don't have to go through these miseries anymore. Let's go to the last part of today's reading. The need for material world. So we have discussed this already. Let's see what Srila Prabhupada says. On the contrary, the government would be very glad to demolish prisons altogether, provided that there are no disobedient citizens in the state. In the same way, this material world is created by the Supreme Lord, but the Supreme Lord does not will that living entities be put in it. Living entities themselves make that decision. The residents of this material world are therefore different from those who are eternally engaged in the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So, if there is an option, the government would actually be very happy to demolish all the prison houses, because the government is actually not interested to keep people in the prison house and subject them to various sufferings and punishments, right? So, in the same way, this material world is created by the Lord, but for reforming those souls who have forgotten their relationship with the Lord. So we were all originally in the spiritual world. We were all engaged in the spiritual world, in the Lord's loving service, but using our minute free will, we have decided to come to this material world when we have developed a discordant mentality. Discordant mentality means using our free will, we have thought, why should I actually serve God? Why can't I enjoy independent of God? So this is the discordant mentality which has made us unfit to stay in the spiritual world, because of which the Lord has made an alternate arrangement for us, that is this material world. And in the material world, the Lord He's still taking care of all our needs, but only one thing that the Lord is expecting in return is we again reform, we revive our original relationship, loving relationship with Him, and uh, so that we can go back to Him and enjoy a life of eternal bliss. So, with that, we come to the end of the reading. I'm sure a lot of questions might have arisen in your mind. So, we will take up some questions now before we go on to the quiz part of it. So, anybody would like to ask questions based on what we read and discussed so far? Please unmute yourself and you can speak up your question. Any questions anybody would like to ask? We have a new participant, I mean, a relatively newer participant whom I met very recently, Shashwat Chaudhary from IASC. Shashwat, uh, do you want to ask something based on what we read and discussed?
Not really, sir. It was pretty clear.
Okay, so can you just in a few statements, can you just uh, tell us what was the learning that you got from today's reading?
So I guess it's about, like, people should be aware themselves that if they do not commit any heinous crime, and they do good to the society and all, so there is no need uh, for places like prisons, which have been made by putting in enormous money and efforts by the government.
Yes.
So that analogy can be related to life, that we should always try to do good, and be aware that uh, whatever we do will be reflected in, uh, like, it'll if we do bad, it will again come back to us in some way. So
Yeah. So the whole point is, yes, well said, Shashwat. So the point that is emphasized here is by reviving our original God consciousness, we can become free from all criminal tendencies. And that is the way out of all miseries. By reviving our God consciousness, we become free from contaminations like lust, anger, greed, etc. And because of this, we can actually be peaceful, and that qualifies us to also, uh, you know, elevate ourselves to higher levels of consciousness. And ultimately, we can also go back to our original home, that is the spiritual abode of the Lord. Okay. Anybody? Amrit had posted some question. Amrit, can you please ask the question so that everybody can hear? Amrit, are you there? Hare Krishna. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes,
Am I
Amrit.
audible?
Yes, yes, very much.
So my question is, like, is there any demoniac controllers, like demigods, Chandra, Indra, Agni, etc.? So
Mhm,
one Rahu is there,
mhm.
but my question is like, is there any controller who will deviate us from Krishna consciousness? Like if we pray to worship that controller, he will deviate us from Krishna consciousness. That is my question.
Okay, nice question. So, are there any demoniac forces who, which can deviate us from Krishna consciousness, from spiritual consciousness? Now, the answer to this question is the only person who can deviate us from spiritual path is our own self. We have to look into the mirror. So, who can actually put a stumbling block in my advancement of consciousness? It is me alone. So, more precisely, our mind. So, Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, for a person who has controlled the mind is the greatest of friends. But for a person who has failed to control the mind, his mind remains his greatest enemy. So, the first and foremost thing that we have to do for a stable spiritual life is to control the mind. And the easiest method to do that is to chant the holy names of the Lord. Now, coming to controllers like Rahu and other planetary demigods, can they influence on us favorably or unfavorably? Now, yes, on the material realm, what we talk about as astrological uh, things, astrology, people talk about astrology, Jyotish Shastra. It is one of the branches of Vedic knowledge. It is a bona fide science, but unfortunately today we don't have bona fide practitioners of Jyotish Shastra who can actually tell us the right thing. But anyway, the point is the planetary systems, the arrangements of the different planetary systems during a person's birth, it is an indication of the quantity of material happiness and sufferings that a person will go through in his life. In other words, whatever activities we have performed so far in our different lifetimes in the material world, the reactions to those activities will be imposed upon us through different agents, and these planetary demigods are one such agents who impose the different reactions of our own activities. Otherwise, these planetary controllers, all the navagrahas and whom we call as the 9 planets, they are all actually devotees of the Supreme Lord. And anybody who takes up Krishna consciousness, who takes up bhakti yoga, devotional service to Krishna, such a person will always be helped even by the devatas. So we don't have to worry that some external controllers will play havoc in our spiritual life. It is only our uncontrolled mind which actually can deviate us from spiritual path. So easiest way to uh, keep ourselves firm on spiritual path is to be in the association of devotees and to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. By this, we can always remain fixed and firm on the spiritual path. Hope that answers your question, Amrit. Now let's move forward. We're going to have an interesting quiz now based on what we read. So can we have the quiz, please? Santosh, can we display the quiz? Yes. So to summarize, okay, we will just go ahead with the quiz. First question, you'll have to type your answers and send it to me on the chat box. You have only 30 seconds. First question, the parts and parcels are meant to serve the whole, and when they misuse their independence, they are subject to the miseries of the laws of dash, just as criminals are subject to police action. So Amrit has posted an answer. Laws of dash. If you had Rupesh and Abhinav have also posted answers, Sanatana Dhama, but I'm afraid none of you have given the accurate answer which I'm looking for, rather which was there in the text. Time's up. The right answer is matter, laws of matter. Okay, there are different versions. Laws of material nature, somebody said laws of material world. All of them are correct. All of them mean the same, but I was just looking for how keenly you were, you were actually listening when we were reading, right? Laws of matter is what Prabhupada says. Material life, laws of matter. Okay, let's go to the second question. The sufferings of the living entities within the prison of material nature cannot be equated with the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, which dash. Complete the sentence. Our sufferings in the material world cannot be equated with the leelas of the Supreme Lord, which dash. Okay, your time has started. Amrit is saying eternal. Kamalakar is saying transcendental. Any other answer? Okay, I think time is up. Not many participants attempted this question. Okay, let's see what's the answer. The answer is they exist in the absolute freedom of Satchidananda. The pastimes of the Supreme Lord exist in the absolute freedom. If you had just told absolute freedom also, it would have been the right answer. Absolute freedom of Satchidananda. They are not subject to the laws of matter. That is what we have to understand. The activities of the Lord, even when he comes to the material world, are not under the control of the laws of matter, like our activities. So they are completely on the absolute freedom of Satchidananda. Now the last question. Let's see the third question. Whom are the residents of material world compared with? The residents of the material world are compared with whom? Your time starts now. Amrit has given an answer. Amrit has answered very quickly. Timer can start. Yeah. Others, okay, Arpan has given the right answer. Prasanna has given the right answer. Sanatana Dhama has given the right answer. Shashwat, I'm afraid it's not the right answer. Rupesh has given the right answer. Shashwat can think again. Someone called GS has given the right answer. Whom are they compared with? Okay, Giridhar Kirtik has also given the right answer. I don't know why the timer is not going. Shashwat. The material world, all of us are compared to something, someone. Whom are the residents of material world compared with? Okay, let's see the answer. Answer, please. Actually, the answer is prisoners, which all of you have given right answer. but I don't know what the quiz master meant with this. The actual correct answer is prisoners. The residents of the material world are compared with the prisoners. But when you see the picture here, the picture is talking about the associates of the Lord who are engaged in his transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So they are totally different. So we cannot compare the residents of the material world and the eternally liberated souls who are participating in the activities of the Lord. So the answer is prisoners. Okay, so with that we come to the end of the quiz, and thank you all for being part of today's session. I hope it was an interesting session. We will all chant 3 times Hare Krishna mantra together before we end the meeting. First we'll chant the Panchatattva mantra 1 time. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Now we shall chant the Hare Krishna mantra thrice. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I request all the participants to at least chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra a minimum of 108 times every day. It takes only 8 minutes, and I'm sure out of our 24 hours, we can invest 8 minutes if it is going to help us to become a better version of ourselves. So thank you very much again for being part of the session. We shall meet again in the next session. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.